Eddie Chavez, Ruben Nava, and Jesse Romero. Jesus 911.
Jesus 911 on Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Good morning, everybody. Ruben Nava here at the helm. I'm a one-man car. My partner is out preaching Lenten missions. Jesse's doing apostolic work, and he has been doing it all through Lent. So make sure you say a prayer for him and those ears that will be hearing his message. I've been away myself. I've been out on a little retirement get together with the sheriff's department every year. They do an annual one, and me being the freshman of the group, it was my first one I attended, and it was great seeing a lot of the fellows, the older guys that I used to work with, and just guys from the whole department, that I didn't know that I met, and so it was wonderful. We're out in Laughlin, Nevada. The weather was great, but it's good to be back. I know that things are moving right along, and I know you've been hearing Eddie and Terry. I know Terry's also doing some apostolic work as well this week. So we got a good show. We're going to be talking about an article about by an actor by the name of Kevin Sorbo. And then another article on Jim Caviezel, and these are Caviezel is a Catholic Christian. Sorbo is a Christian. They make great movies. Let's just be honest. And The Passion of the Christ was a phenomenal movie, and and anyone who saw that had to be changed. And so what I'm trying to do with this show is to try to promote these Catholic and Christian actors and movies, so that we're not patronizing some of the garbage that Hollywood is putting out. And so the first guy that I want to mention, and first of all, today's the feast day of Pope St. Leo the Great, and Hema Galgana. So Saint Galgana, we want to just ask for their intercession today. Saints are particularly powerful on their feast days, so don't forget to invoke them today. So you may know TV's Hercules actor. That's what he's most known for. He's a very outspoken personality in the pro-life movement, and he says that abortion is the definition of evil, pure and simple, and we are fighting the culture of death, and we need to join forces. Christians of all kinds. Not just Catholics. But we have to join forces with all our Christian brothers to fight against this culture of death and the politicians that are making it abortion on demand as easy as going and buying an ice cream. It's disgusting what they are doing. And this actor Kevin Sorbo he's not mincing words. And he says in this article that Hollywood is mostly an industry that favors abortion, and we saw that with this movie Unplanned. Hollywood would not even they wouldn't promote it. They wouldn't run the ads to do it. The only station that ran the Unplanned trailer was Fox, and we know that the last 2 weeks at the box office they're surpassing all expectations. I think it was a $5 to $6 million budgeted movie, and they've doubled their revenue from all of you that are patronizing this movie. And we have to get the word out to get out there and watch this movie, especially bring family, friends that might be on the fence or might be pro-choice. And pro-death. So getting back to this article, he says that celebrities flock to fundraisers for abortion corporations like Planned Parenthood and NARAL. And, actors and producers are increasingly trying to shoehorn abortion into mainstream culture. But while they may not always be as vocal, there are pro-life celebrities out there. And one of them is this actor, Kevin Sorbo. And he just wrote an op-ed piece in defense of life, and he didn't mince his words. He's best known, like I said, for playing the title role in the TV fantasy adventure series Hercules, and as Captain Dylan Hunt in Andromeda. He's been a longtime pro-life advocate and speaker. Sorbo also, he starred as the atheist philosophy professor opposite Christian student Josh Wheaton, played by Shane Harper in the film God's Not Dead. And he just released a film called Let There Be Light. And Let There Be Light is, he's the producer, he stars in it. And so we should patronize this movie. It's a movie about the story of the world's greatest atheist who finds God after a near-death experience. Let There Be Light. And he wrote about the experience of a friend, and it's a pretty cool comment. He wrote about an experience of a friend who, when his ex-girlfriend realized she was unexpectedly pregnant, his friend, whom he called Mike, he received a call from the ex-girlfriend, whom Sorbo called Kate. And Kate wanted Mike to come with her to an abortion facility after her birth control had failed. She thought abortion was her only choice. She did the only logical, sensible thing that our culture forces down our throats. She scheduled an abortion, Sorbo wrote. And as the day approached, she was filled with trepidation. Contrary to the common knowledge, abortions are surgery and deadly serious. Kate knew enough to be daunted by the prospect, so she reached out to a friend she trusted not to judge her harshly, and this was Mike. So Kate asked Mike to come with her, to hold her hand and keep her steady, but instead Mike asked if he could talk to her about her decision. And get this, Mike continued quietly and with conviction. He said, "This child inside your womb is the greatest love story of your life. Kate, killing it will not solve your problem. It will create an even bigger one." Sorbo recounted, "I understand you feel a great burden. Bringing a life into the world can be just that. But in removing that life from your body, you will be destroying an opportunity to know love like you have never imagined. So I beg you not to do this thing. Change your point of view instead and see this as the greatest of love stories, one that will be yours for the rest of your life." Wow, that's powerful. That I'm going to have to use that line. So Kate cried and told him she would think about it. Ultimately, she chose life for her baby, who is now an adult, married, and with children of his own. The problem, Sorbo argued, is that we have all been sold a lie. We have been sold a lie. Planned Parenthood tells these women that it's not a life, it's just a clump of cells. They don't show the women the ultrasound. They don't hear the show, listen to the heartbeat. They keep them in the dark. And unlike what some of these politicians are saying, this is between a woman and her doctor. They never talk to the doctors. The doctors never talk to them. Abby Johnson from the Unplanned movie, Abby Johnson says, yeah, the doctors never spoke to him. They never looked him in the eyes and gave him the different options that were available to him. That's just it's a big fat lie. Sorbo goes on to say, secular humanists have made the word abortion sound like a woman's right, synonymous with healthcare, female empowerment, standing for women's issues, a choice, a solution, anything but the truth. He said, the truth is, however, abortion is the termination of life. It's just a euphemism for murder, because the only reason to get an abortion is to avoid the potential of birth, a human birth. So, Sorbo pointed out the disturbing a sea turtle's nest or stealing its eggs is a crime that can land somebody in prison for years. But abortion is not only legal, it's been turned into a profitable industry. You see that all over. You mess with the bald eagles nesting sites. And I'll tell you a story. One time while attending UCLA, a young man came up to me as an activist for saving the bald eagle, and it was a worthy cause, and to protect the nesting sites. And hey, will you donate to this? I said, yeah, sure. I gave him like a $10 bill. He was still holding it in his hand, and I asked him the question, well, if you're protecting the eagles' nests and their eggs, how do you feel about the baby in the womb? And you know what his response was? Oh, I don't get involved with politics. I said, are you kidding me? And I grabbed that $10 bill and I yanked it out of his hand. I said, wait, you got your priorities mixed up, buddy. And I walked away from him. But that's how these people are. And you saw that in Washington, and the politicians were just shortly, 2 weeks after they had voted, the Democrats had voted to not assist a baby who was born to a botched abortion and let that baby die on the table. They were advocating to save the cats and other animals from euthanasia. Our world is mixed up, people. Let's pray for them. We got to pray for each other. We got to stand together. Listening to Jesus 911. We'll be back. I have a special guest on the other side of the break. We're going to be talking about 40 Days for Life. God bless.
This is Terry Barber inviting you, all the men, to a men's conference June 15th at the Sacred Heart Chapel. This is going to be a day where we're going to talk about true masculinity. You know, there's a problem in the Catholic Church today. We have very few men who love the Catholic faith. And I know a lot of the wives that I'm listening to right now saying, I want my husband to be on fire for the faith. Send him to the men's conference. Your son, send him to the men's conference by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org or call 877-526-2151. That's June 15th. When your husband comes back from this conference, or your son, they're going to have a different view about their Catholic faith, because they're going to meet three men who love Jesus and his bride, the church, and are going to instill in them a love for Christ and his church, the Eucharist, Our Lady. Bring them to virginmostpowerfulradio.org. Sign up there or call 877-526-2151. Full sheen ahead.
It is only because of your continued prayers and generous donations that Virgin Most Powerful Radio can broadcast live each weekday. We count on your spiritual and financial support because you understand the urgent need for Catholic programming that shares the gospel with clarity and charity, but without compromise. Please prayerfully consider becoming a monthly donor. You can set it up with the touch of a button on our website, catholicrc.org.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
We are back. Jesus 911. I'm a one-man car, a king car. Call sign is John 3:16. And I've been talking about an actor by the name of Kevin Sorbo, Christian. He's a Christian actor who is in the films he was the Hercules actor. He was also in God Is Not Dead, and he's got another movie coming out, Let There Be Light. So it's a movie about an atheist who had a near-death experience and found God. So we need to, like I said, patronize these movies, these actors, and you know, we I don't think we have our guest on the line yet, so we'll just continue. Sorbo writes that it was, and he's absolutely correct. Barely a century after our grave and costly war against slavery, we know that to be the Civil War, against depriving some human beings of their dignity and based solely on their skin color, we codified in the law the right of the citizen to kill progeny. That was the Roe versus Wade law, a Supreme Court decision, I should say, and based solely on its size and location in the womb, and while unwittingly depriving herself of love that is pure and enduring. And this is the definition of evil, pure and simple, he concluded. So Sorbo's been a pro-life voice in Hollywood, and he's not afraid to speak out against abortion. And, after, you all recall the last couple of years, after the release of the undercover video showing Planned Parenthood executives discussing harvesting the body parts of aborted children. After that, Sorbo wrote that the tapes ought to make you sick, and they did. If you watched any of the videos of these directors at Planned Parenthood talking about harvesting and selling these body parts, and it's absolutely disgusting. And he says that watching the horrible women sell aborted baby parts like she was working in an auto store. In another post, he said, "How is this not discussing to the vast majority out there that value human life?" And David Daleiden was the individual and his team that were out there videotaping, and thank God that he's been able to beat some of these trumped up charges that were put up against them right here in L.A. In fact, our Attorney General Becerra, Antonio Becerra, he tried to get him on a whole slew of charges, and to which he was able to defeat those charges. And Sorbo also, he campaigned to raise funds for the film Gosnell. If you remember that was that gruesome movie last year that if you didn't see it, it's hard to watch, but I think all pro-lifers need to see that movie. It reveals the gruesome chop shop of practices inside abortionist Kermit Gosnell, Philadelphia House of Horrors. Sorbo's campaign was covered by mainstream media outlets and pro-life groups alike. That was another movie that didn't get too much airtime and advertisement because the Planned Parenthood big industry did not want that to get out there, even though Gosnell was not working for Planned Parenthood. He had his own clinic that did abortions nonstop. Sorbo goes on to say that even the pro-choicers would look at this and say, no, this isn't right. I'm not so sure, Mr. Sorbo. We saw what they're doing in Washington and across the country, Virginia, Massachusetts, New York. So this is something that he says that he and his wife are behind because they believe in this project. It's long overdue for the story to be told, and it wasn't covered by the media nearly as much as of the other murder cases. Hollywood loves murder. Hollywood loves action-packed movies, blood and guts, and then the media, the newspapers. If it bleeds, people want to know about it, and it sells. And I'll tell you what, when they try to tell you that it's not a baby in the womb, why is it that when I was working in the gang unit, we had a shooting of a pregnant woman that I handled, and she was pregnant. She lost her baby, and she survived. However, they charged her. They charged her with the suspect with murder and assault and attempted murder on the female. So, if it's not a baby, then how could that be? How is it that a mother could choose to kill her own baby, but yet, and then they don't call it murder, but yet if you shoot a pregnant woman and you kill her baby, that's murder. It should be murder all the time. Well, Kermit Gosnell is America's most prolific serial killer, and for those of you who saw it, this is for 3 decades. He was an abortion doctor in Philadelphia where he delivered live, viable babies who cried and fought for their life before he murdered them by severing their spinal cord with scissors. He called it snipping. It's the crime of the century, but most of the media in Hollywood have ignored the story. See, so we have to, like I said, these guys that are out there in the fight, we've got to help them. We've got to get out there, and we got to be in the fight ourselves. And, what's going on right now is there's a campaign going on, a 40 Days for Life campaign. And if you saw the movie Unplanned, and you know that those prayer warriors that were outside the fence, they were out there. These were the guys, Sean Carney and David B. Wright. He wasn't featured in the film. He's not with the movement anymore, but they were both instrumental in starting 40 Days for Life, along with Sean's wife. They met there. They weren't married when it started this, but Mary Lisa, she's portrayed in the movie as well, and she was out there on the fence, and she was the one who befriended Abby Johnson, and showed her compassion, and they were out there day in and day out. When they first started this 40 Days for Life on that first campaign, she was putting in 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, from 7 to 3 on that fence. And Saturdays was the day that they did Planned Parenthood did their abortions. So they were out there. She was out there with Sean Carney and her husband. And then they would both be the only ones out there on Sunday. And so if you don't know what 40 Days for Life, it's an international, religious-based, pro-life advocacy group that campaigns against abortion in over 20 nations worldwide. It was originally started in 2004 by a local group in Bryan, College Station, Texas. And the name refers to a pattern of several events lasting for 40 days repeated in the Bible, such as Noah's Ark, Moses' 40 days on Mount Sinai, and Jesus' 40 days in the desert. So 40 days is instrumental. It's a big movement. And my buddy is out there on the front lines. A friend of mine, Steve Perez. He's a deputy. He actually is a sergeant with our department, and he's supposed to be calling in. I think we should have him shortly, but maybe we'll get him on the next break. But you know what? These guys are out there. These are my heroes. They're out there doing the Lord's work, putting feet to their faith. They're out there on the front lines, standing up for what they believe in, being that prayer chain. A lot of rosaries are said out there, and I should be out there tomorrow. And I'll tell you, this campaign, it started. This particular campaign started on Ash Wednesday, and it concludes this Saturday. And they'll be having a rally out there in Pomona at the local one that my friend Steve is involved with, and Sean Carney, going back to Sean and Marilisa Carney, they were instrumental in founding this. And as I mentioned on another program, once that Planned Parenthood was closed, where Abby Johnson was the director, they bought that building and they used it for the headquarters for 40 Days for Life. I think that is awesome, that the Lord is moving and working in this movement for to keep babies alive. God hears our prayers, and I think that like Our Lady of Fatima says, many souls go to hell because they have no one to pray for them. So this campaign is going on all across the nation. People are praying and fasting, and just so you know, abortion, it's listed out in the Catechism. Since the first century, the Church has affirmed the moral evil of every procured abortion. This teaching has not changed and remains unchangeable. 2271 of the Catechism. Direct abortion, that is to say, abortion willed, either as an end or a means, is gravely contrary to the moral law. You shall not kill the embryo by abortion and shall not cause the newborn to perish. God, the Lord of life, has entrusted to men the noble mission of safeguarding life, and men must carry it out in a manner worthy of themselves. Life must be protected with the utmost care from the moment of conception. Abortion and infanticide are abominable crimes. And it's talking about, God has entrusted men the noble mission of safeguarding life. Right here on Jesus 911, Tuesdays and Thursdays, this is muscular Catholicism. This is your call, men. This is your call. You have a stake in this, and you need to safeguard your women and those children that they're carrying, and not enable them to go out and commit this grave act, this grievous act. And 2272 of the Catechism says, formal cooperation in an abortion constitutes a grave offense. If you just drive someone over to the abortion clinic, or somebody comes to you as looking for some help, and you don't counsel them correctly, the spiritual works of mercy, they mandate us to instruct the ignorant. And anyway, I hear the music. We're coming up on another break, and we will continue with this, talking a little bit about this abortion, and then I want to get into another article. And let's do the right thing, ladies and gentlemen. Stay ready. You don't have to get ready. We'll be back on this side of the break. This is 911.
This is Terry Barber inviting you, all the men, to a men's conference June 15th at the Sacred Heart Chapel. This is going to be a day where we're going to talk about true masculinity. There's a problem in the Catholic Church today. We have very few men who love the Catholic faith. And I know a lot of the wives that I'm listening to right now saying, I want my husband to be on fire for the faith. Send him to the men's conference. Your son, send him to the men's conference by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org or call 877-526-2151. That's June 15th. When your husband comes back from this conference, or your son, they're going to have a different view about their Catholic faith, because they're going to meet three men who love Jesus and his bride, the church, and are going to instill in them a love for Christ and his church, the Eucharist, Our Lady. Bring them to virginmostpowerfulradio.org. Sign up there or call 877-526-2151. Full sheen ahead.
It is only because of your continued prayers and generous donations that Virgin Most Powerful Radio can broadcast live each weekday. We count on your spiritual and financial support because you understand the urgent need for Catholic programming that shares the gospel with clarity and charity, but without compromise. Please prayerfully consider becoming a monthly donor. You can set it up with the touch of a button on our website, catholicrc.org.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show, and they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Jesus 911 on Virgin Most Powerful Radio. I'm a king car today. My partner Jesse Romero is away doing some apostolic work, and so I've been talking about some movies that we want to go and patronize, and some of this actor Kevin Sorbo, and then the 40 Days for Life. On the other side of on the second segment, we were talking about some of the sections in the Catechism. I think we have I have my buddy on the line here, Sergeant Steve. He works the LA County Sheriff's Department. Are you with us, Steve?
I'm here,
Steve,
my brother.
There you go.
Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me on.
No, thank you for coming on, Steve. Steve is a prayer warrior. He by day he's toting a 9mm for keeping the people of LA County safe, but in his off-duty time, he is carrying another weapon. It's called a rosary, and he's out there in front of the Pomona Planned Parenthood, and he's the director of this campaign for 40 Days for Life. Steve, tell us a little about what's been going on over in the San Gabriel Valley, where you're heading up that rally or that campaign.
Sure. The 40 Days for Life, we're wrapping up our spring vigil. It's going to end. It actually ends on Sunday, but we're doing an event in conjunction with Protest Planned Parenthood nationwide on Saturday. So we're kind of rolling our victory rally and that event into one.
Okay.
But technically, we will man our post there on our vigil, because it is a 40-day vigil up until Sunday evening at 7 p.m. if anyone still wants to join us. But it's doing well, and a lot of people coming out. I'm seeing a very big response from a lot of people, new callers, ever since the movie Unplanned screened.
Yes.
At that point, afterward, I started getting a lot more requests from people to volunteer to come out and help out.
Oh, that's awesome. That is wonderful. Steve, can you tell us, have you had any success stories that you've seen? We know that a lot of this goes unseen. These women have changed their minds. We know from Abby Johnson saying that there's a high percentage of women don't even stop when they see these prayer warriors out there. Has that been your experience? Have you seen cars just drive away when they see you guys out there with your signs and your rosaries?
Yeah, definitely. When they see someone out there, they understand that that there's a certain segment of society that believe it's important enough for us to give up our time and stand out there and witness. And we'll never know exactly how many people we affect, but definitely, you'll see cars go by or people just they look like they want to stop, but then they just keep moving along. But on this side of heaven, we're never going to know exactly how many people we affected. But it's true, the statistic that they quoted in the movie, that the no-shows go up for Planned Parenthood up to 75% when somebody's out in front. So
right, that's right. I remember that.
Does have an effect.
I wanted to say 75%, but I didn't want to throw that out because I couldn't remember for sure. But yeah, you're right. That's what Abby Johnson did say. And have there been any success stories that you saw? I mean, any saves that you want to tell the audience about? And by the way, folks who listen across the country, we're talking about a Planned Parenthood in Pomona, California. It's in the San Gabriel Valley, right off the 10 freeway. And so sometimes I forget that we've got listeners all across the country, across the world for that matter, and just want to give them a kind of a point of reference. Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Definitely. Yeah, because, 40 Days for Life really is a international phenomenon, the way it started, as you mentioned earlier, in College Station, Texas. It's spread to 816 cities currently in 56 different countries. So it's going around the world. And, at any given time, there's someone out there on the front line on this vigil, this 40-day vigil. And here in Pomona, on the east side of Los Angeles County, we're seeing successes. We had 3 saves right off the bat on our first full week. We had some turnarounds. And as a matter of fact, I believe it was last Friday we had one as well. Another young lady decided not to go in. And, I'm not there. I open in the mornings, but most of these saves happen really during the middle of the day when a lot of my prayer warriors are out there, the devoted, committed men and women, mostly the ladies from, the different parishes and churches that come to show up and, they just want to pray and help the young ladies going in and try to let them know that they have other options. We have the real choices. They call themselves pro-choice. We're the real pro-choicers. We tell them that you do have a choice. Adoption is an option. You can give up your baby. You can keep your baby. We have pregnancy centers, maternity centers that we have information on to try to hand out to these ladies.
That's right.
And we do it in a very passive, peaceful way. 40 Days for Life promotes a very peaceful campaign. You have to sign a statement of peace, promising you won't get violent or you won't approach anybody in an aggressive manner. They're very specific about how you can act out there. And that's what drew me to the 40 days initially because, as the movie also pointed out, too, there have been movements in the past, going back to the 70s, who can get pretty emotional and, very aggressive at times. And, in my opinion, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's the peaceful, calm person that can talk to the young ladies who are in distress and try to, establish rapport with them and get them whatever help they need that we can offer.
Yeah, Steve, in the movie Unplanned, they did show another group of people when Abby Johnson arrived as a volunteer, and you heard those vocal people they weren't part of the 40 Days for Life. There was a different group, and they were saying, "You baby killers," calling them different names, and I agree that's not going to get anyone to listen to them, and as it turns out, those people kind of have dwindled away, and the 40 Days for Life people have pretty much taken the bull by the horns, and so you don't really see them out there too much. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but I know
not anymore. Yeah. Well, you've been out there too with me on previous campaigns as well, and especially on the certain days where they do the surgical abortions out there. Yeah. But that's exactly it. The recipe that 40 Days for Life has is really what works. The whole campaign really is their mission is to help these young men and women, out there. And it's the recipe is, as I said, is prayer and fasting, a constant vigil, and a community outreach. Those are the 3 prongs. And, it's just that peaceful prayer presence. That's what's going to make a difference. You had all these organizations back to the 70s who, the louder we shout or the more signs we have or the more provocative we get, we're going to have an effect. That doesn't work. Only God's going to make a change, and we're going to get that change by praying to the Lord, asking Him for a change in the way people look at abortion, a change of the culture, this culture of death that we have now. It's just, a lot of people will say, and you hear on different Catholic radio stations, internet channels, abortion. Why are they always talking about abortion? Well, they're talking about abortion all the time because that's what's affecting everything in our world.
That's right.
Every other evil really falls from that. And they talk about social justice and things like that. Well, what about the injustice of taking a baby's life and the callousness of of the people in this country that don't even see that as an evil. That whole post-birth abortion, that whole thing that came up, and you can't even get a certain segment of society or even our lawmakers to agree that a baby that is now born separated from the mother, so the whole mother's body argument is out the window. Mm-hmm. You can't even get them to agree to protect that baby right there. And if you can't get them to do that, where do you draw the line? I mean, where's our humanity at that point? So
yeah, Steve, I know that
abortion is the underlying thing.
On their website, 40 Days for Life website, they mentioned that they focus on the spiritual aspects of the battle to end abortion, and they frequently cite 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin and will heal their land. And so they said that they have this opportunity to cooperate with God in carrying out His work. You guys on 40 Days for Life, you put your faith in His will and prayerfully discern how He wishes us to respond. And so tell the people what's going on. You started mentioning it. So you're having a rally in case anyone is in the area. They want to participate in this rally that you have going on, and you've asked me to participate as well. So go tell the people where it's going to be, and they could get involved.
Definitely. I'm sorry, I go off on a rant here in my tangent.
It's okay.
Yeah. So this Saturday we are having at the vigil at Pomona. We're having a candlelight vigil, which is a nationwide Planned Parenthood protest. Which is another movement altogether, but we're going to do it in conjunction with them from 6 to 7 p.m. And then after 7, we're going to have our closing rally. We call our victory rally. And that's going to be at St. Joseph's Church in Pomona on Holt Avenue. And at that function, at the closing rally, we'll have speakers, and you're going to be our headline speaker. Ruben, I thank you for coming out and talking about
my pleasure.
Pro-life issues. And it's a blessing, and I really thank you for that.
All right. Well, Steve, I hear the music. I thank you for coming on, buddy, and we will. I will see you this Saturday if I'm not available to get out there tomorrow. But thank you for being with us. You're listening to Jesus 911. Stay tuned for the other.
This is Terry Barber inviting you, all the men, to a men's conference June 15th at the Sacred Heart Chapel. This is going to be a day where we're going to talk about true masculinity. You know, there's a problem in the Catholic Church today. We have very few men who love the Catholic faith. And I know a lot of the wives that I'm listening to right now saying, I want my husband to be on fire for the faith. Send him to the men's conference. Your son, send him to the men's conference by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org or call 877-526-2151. That's June 15th. When your husband comes back from this conference, or your son, they're going to have a different view about their Catholic faith, because they're going to meet 3 men who love Jesus and His bride, the church, and are going to instill in them a love for Christ and His church, the Eucharist, Our Lady. Bring them to virginmostpowerfulradio.org. Sign up there or call 877-526-2151. Full sheen ahead.
It is only because of your continued prayers and generous donations that Virgin Most Powerful Radio can broadcast live each weekday. We count on your spiritual and financial support because you understand the urgent need for Catholic programming that shares the gospel with clarity and charity, but without compromise. Please prayerfully consider becoming a monthly donor. You can set it up with the touch of a button on our website, catholicrc.org.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
You're listening to Jesus 911 on Virgin Most Powerful Radio, where iron sharpens iron and one man sharpens another. And we're trying to give you some Catholic briefing here. Just got off the phone with my brother in Christ, Sergeant Steve, from the LA County Sheriff's Department. So it's awesome to see our sheepdogs out there, our men that are out there protecting the communities that love Jesus Christ. And so, Steve, thank you for calling in and being part of this show. Keep up the good work. I'm going to kind of get into this other article that I wanted to mention. It was actually an interview that actor Jim Caviezel, we all know him from The Passion of the Christ, he went and became the narrator of a documentary about the life of Carol Wojtyla. That's Pope John Paul II, Saint Pope John Paul II, and so he was. It's a documentary called "Liberating the Continent: John Paul II and the Fall of Communism," and so this was kind of taken from an interview that he did in Poland, and it was translated. And he says that he shares his faith, the Blessed Mother, and Pope St. John Paul II, and those people have all inspired him to be who he could be. He looks forward to the possibility of working with Mel Gibson again, to have the chance to inspire others, and how the idea is a source of renewed purpose in his life. The role of Christ was the most difficult, he said, he'd ever taken on. And while the thought of doing it again feels like a nightmare, being in a place of martyrdom and sacrifice, such as Poland, makes him realize that only the love of Christ can save the world. And so he says, if the passion of Christ inspired so many people to do good, why not we try it again? So he thinks that they're going to be doing another movie. So he also says that there's a purpose in his life again. You see, people, Jesus Christ brings us purpose, because if like the modernists, they don't talk about sin, they don't talk about hell, and everybody goes to heaven in their book. But if there's no sin and there's no hell, then why do we need a redeemer? Why did Jesus suffer on the cross like he did for 3 hours? And if you listen to some commentaries by this actor, Jim Caviezel, who, by the way, is a hardcore Catholic, and I saw him at the funeral of Father Marks over in at the My Parish over in Ontario at San Segundo d'Asti. Father Marks passed away a couple of years ago, and Jim Caviezel was at the funeral that was held out there actually it was held in Rancho Cucamonga. And so this guy he's adamant about promoting his faith, promoting Jesus Christ. He knows that when he played Jesus Christ, he was going to face a lot of criticism, and he often gets derision. And but he had to get on with his life. He says there wouldn't be Jim Caviezel as Jesus if it wasn't for John Paul II, he said. And looking at his life and the power of evangelization, he said to himself, why would you even care about that nonsense? Worrying about what other people think of you. We can't do that, folks. We can't worry about what other people think of you. The only one that matters is what Jesus thinks of us. Okay? It doesn't matter that you're not popular at work, you're not popular at school, because of your stance on life, on your stance on your Catholic faith. Actor Jim Caviezel, he said that the Pope had had a very big influence on him. In the 80s, he was a teenager, and John Paul II came to the USA, and he was 90 minutes away from where he lived. So him and his family went to see him and listen to him. And for many Catholics, his visit was almost like a visit of Jesus Christ himself. John Paul II was the first pope who has visited the USA. In fact, it was Paul VI, and he met the president in the White House. He said, "Hey, I didn't go to see him. I didn't think it was important." When he didn't go see the president in the White House, but he did go see the Pope. And he says that years later, when he was playing the Passion of the Christ, when he met the Pope said to him, after the Pope had seen the movie, "Tak bilo," which is Polish, saying that the Pope was always called young. It's a word that he says, it's how it was. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. The Pope always called young people to break away from the contaminated and demoralized civilization. Be a saint, he said. Impossible. It is doable. Often I hear the voice of Christ in my heart. Jim, you will manage today. It is a message saying that everyone in the world is equally important. It's also an appeal for a Christian life in which one demonstrates to everyone they come across that Jesus is their Lord. He says, I remember the Pope saying to Americans, you can all be saints. It makes me sad that so many people in my country do not seek sainthood. Let me say that again. It makes him sad that so many people in this country do not seek sainthood. We're all called to be saints, folks. We may not be canonized saints by the church, but we're in heaven, we're saints. So that's what we're striving to be. Too many people substitute their faith in Jesus Christ with drugs and hedonism. It's simply filling the emotional void. So John Paul II had an audience with him at the Vatican, and he told John Paul II was also in acting. He was, before he was a pope, before he was a priest, he was doing plays, and he was an artist. And he talked about that with the Pope. And it's also, I didn't know this, I didn't put the two together, but Jim Caviezel, his initials are JC, and he was 33 years old when he portrayed Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. And he doesn't think that's a coincidence, nor do I. And God doesn't work by coincidence. So he says, I keep on hearing about accidents and strokes of luck. Secularization affects the entire world, also the USA. Only the atheists believe in coincidence. There are no coincidences for God. Even when God resurrects the dead, they will say it happened by accident. And also he was quoting G.K. Chesterton. He says, one doesn't believe in God, one believes in anything. At the same time, one doesn't have the right to do what they like and decide about everything. Live without morality, without goodness. Where is love in all of this? You know, true freedom is not being able to do what you want. It's being able to do what you ought. The freedom to do what you ought to do. People like Nietzsche, we talked about Nietzsche the other day, and they wanted to kill God. They wanted to put God out of their minds and say that there is no God. So Hollywood is full of people like that. And so we're talking about Hollywood. People were saying, oh, you're not going to work anymore. In fact, Mel Gibson told him that you may not work anymore after doing this role. And he was right. In fact, Jim Caviezel says that after he did this role, all of a sudden he stopped being one of the 5 most popular actors in the studio. And he says he hasn't done anything wrong. He just played Jesus. He says, was I personally touched by this rejection? Well, everyone has their cross to bear. The world changes in the particular direction, but after all, I will not be in this world forever. And listen to this statement, folks. Neither will the producers from Hollywood. At some point, everyone will have to answer for what they have done. That's correct. You and I, all of us, will have to take account of our lives at the general judgment, and we'll have our exit interview, as Jesse likes to say. And that's true. Those people who are scoffers and mockers of us that practice our faith, they too will be judged one day. And they asked him a question: where do you think this reaction came from? Are people afraid of such films, of evocative pictures of Jesus on the screen? People really stood for it. Over $500 million income is a great success. There are even reports of conversions after watching the film. And he says, it isn't me who should answer that question. They should, shouldn't they? I did my job. The film was inspired millions of viewers. Let the producers answer whether they are afraid of this success. My career is not over. After all, I started in some prominent Hollywood films. I also played in a popular TV series called Person of Interest. And he says, at the same time, I've never forgotten that the name of Jesus is above all else. He says, this is a guy who knows. This is a manly man. This is a guy who knows what it's all about, people. And that's what I'm saying. We have to patronize their films and their work, and leave that other junk behind in Hollywood. It's also the most controversial name of all time. Love is controversial, and he impersonates love. Jesus was telling the Romans about love, and they killed him because of that. Who is that man to tell me what kind of person I'm supposed to be? They ask arrogantly. So he was betrayed by his own people and abandoned by everyone. That was Jesus. My duty was not only to show it all on the screen. My real duty is to live in accordance with the gospel every day and give witness to the truth. And it all goes down to John Paul II again, totus tuus, totally yours. If you want to know how he inspires me, this is it, totally yours. So John Paul II was a big inspiration to this actor, Jim Caviezel. And he said it right there. He said it best right there. My real duty is to live in accordance with the gospel every day and to give witness to the truth. Folks, we have to be that face of Christ. We have to, by our lives, show people we believe in what we're preaching. Because if we're just preaching words and our lives don't indicate that we haven't had that change of heart, then we aren't truly converted. Jesus says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Okay, so he also goes on to say, for me, the Catholic Mass is a source of constant empowerment. That's where I can meet Jesus. It's not simply about having a symbolic wafer. It's about the actual transformation. Bread and wine. No, it's the body and blood of Jesus Christ. This is worth dying for every day. He says, I pray to die with Jesus in my heart, never to abandon him. And folks, we have to be like that. Receive Jesus in Holy Communion as often as you can. Receive it like it's your first time. Receive it like it's your last time. Receive it like it's your only time. Because one day it will be your last time. You've been listening to Jesus 911. I hope this inspired you a little bit to go out there and be the best version of yourself. Stay tuned for Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Mashuda. And he's coming from the Spiritual Dojo. I'll be back next week. And if you get a chance to get out to Pomona, California this weekend, join us. I'll be out there promoting this movement. Thank you. God bless.
St. Faustina's Prayer for Priests. O my Jesus, I beg thee on behalf of the whole Church, grant it love and the light of thy Spirit, and give power to the words of priests, so that hardened hearts might be brought to repentance and return to thee, O Lord. Lord, give us holy priests. Thou thyself maintain them in holiness. O divine and great High Priest, may the power of thy mercy accompany them everywhere, and protect them from the devil's traps and snares, which are continually being set for the souls of priests. May the power of thy mercy, O Lord, shatter and bring to naught all that might tarnish the sanctity of priests. For thou canst do all things. Amen. Virgin most powerful, pray for us.